I sat across from Warren at a restaurant I'd never been to before. The kind of upscale place with cloth napkins folded into perfect triangles and a wine list thicker than a phone book. The lighting was dim and romantic, designed for special occasions and celebrations. He'd insisted on this dinner to celebrate his startup acquisition. $8 million. The deal had closed 2 weeks ago. I was proud of him, genuinely proud, but I was also completely exhausted. I'd worked overtime every single day this week to cover our rent again. My back ached from sitting at my desk for 12-hour stretches. Warren looked uncomfortable across the table. He kept adjusting his collar repeatedly and wouldn't meet my eyes directly. His jaw was tense. He reached across the white tablecloth and took my hand. His palm was sweaty and cold. "I need to tell you something important," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. My stomach dropped instantly, like an elevator with cut cables. I knew that tone intimately. Nothing good ever followed those specific words. He said he'd been thinking a lot since the acquisition closed last month. Really thinking about his life and his future. He needed space to figure things out properly. He wasn't ready for marriage anymore. He was calling off the wedding. 3 weeks before the ceremony. 3 weeks before 200 guests were supposed to arrive. I stared at him, completely unable to process what I was hearing. The words didn't make sense. What about everything we built together? He looked away toward the window, watching cars pass by outside. I need to find myself. Figure out who I am now. I realized in that crushing moment he'd already made up his mind completely. This wasn't a discussion or a conversation where my input mattered. This was a notification. An announcement. He was breaking up with me at a fancy restaurant he'd paid for with money I'd helped him earn. 6 years earlier, I was 23 years old and working at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. The job was fine, but not particularly exciting. I met Warren at my friend's birthday party on a warm Saturday night in June. He was charming and incredibly ambitious, finishing his last year of computer science at the State University. He had this energy about him that drew people in naturally. We started dating within a week of meeting. He talked constantly about his dreams and aspirations. Starting a tech company, changing the world with innovative software, making something that truly mattered and helped people. I believed in him completely and absolutely. He was brilliant but completely broke, living with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment. I was practical and financially stable with a decent salary and good benefits. We balanced each other perfectly, or so it seemed. Within 3 months, we were completely inseparable. We spent every evening together. He moved into my small 1-bedroom apartment to save money on rent. His roommates were unreliable anyway. I didn't mind at all. I was deeply in love for the first time in my adult life. He talked about our future constantly. Marriage. Kids. A house with a yard. Building something amazing together. I felt like I'd found my person. My partner. My future husband. The one. He talked about how we'd be a team through everything. How we'd support each other through thick and thin. How we'd build an incredible life together side by side. I had absolutely no idea I was signing up to be his personal bank account for the next 6 years. Looking back now with clear eyes, all the warning signs were there from the very beginning. But love makes you blind to red flags. It makes you interpret warning signs as romantic gestures of trust. He didn't need a partner. He needed an investor who wouldn't ask for equity or legal documentation. Warren got accepted to a prestigious MBA program 8 months after we started dating. Full-time program, 2 full years, absolutely no income at all during the entire program. The tuition alone was staggering. He was absolutely ecstatic about the opportunity. It was a top 10 program that would open doors everywhere. I was supportive, but genuinely worried. How would we afford rent and bills and food? He promised it was temporary. Just 2 years. Invest in me now, and we'll both reap the rewards later. This is for our future together. I picked up a second job doing freelance marketing work on nights and weekends. I wrote website copy and managed social media accounts for small businesses. I paid rent, groceries, utilities, internet, and his expensive textbooks that cost hundreds of dollars each semester. I took out a personal loan for $12,000 to cover his first semester tuition gap that financial aid hadn't covered. The interest rate was higher than I wanted, but he needed it. He was grateful and affectionate during this time. I couldn't do this without you. We're a real team. I'll pay you back 10 times over when I'm successful. I believed him completely without any doubt. I was exhausted working 70 hours a week between both jobs, but I stayed hopeful and optimistic. 2 years felt manageable. Difficult, but manageable. This is what partners do for each other, right? I told myself constantly that the sacrifice would absolutely be worth it in the end. That we were investing in our future together as a couple. I never asked him to sign anything legal. I never documented the loans properly. I trusted him completely with my whole heart. That trust would eventually cost me everything I had. Warren graduated from his MBA program with honors and multiple awards. I was incredibly proud. I'd worked myself nearly to death to make it happen, but seeing him walk across that stage made it feel worth it. But instead of getting a job to help pay bills and start contributing financially, he announced he was starting a tech company immediately. No job search. No income plan. A project management software tool he'd been developing as a side project during school. He needed dedicated time to build it properly. Maybe a year, he estimated casually. I was surprised but tried hard to be supportive like always. How will we pay our bills and rent? He explained patiently he'd get investors eventually, but he needed a working prototype first to show them something tangible. Nobody invests in just an idea or concept. I kept working both jobs. 70 hours a week. I paid rent, groceries, utilities, everything. He coded in our apartment 16 hours a day, barely leaving his desk. Months passed slowly. Then 6 months. Then a full year. I was drowning in debt and complete physical exhaustion. My credit cards were maxed out completely. I hadn't bought new clothes in over a year. I was wearing shoes with holes in them. He promised constantly it would pay off soon. Very soon. You're investing in our future together. This will make us both rich. I wanted desperately to believe him. I needed to believe him. But I was starting to feel less like an equal partner and more like an ATM machine he visited regularly. I was too tired and too financially invested to walk away now. I'd already given so much. What was a little more time? I was trapped by sunk cost fallacy and didn't even realize it. 3 years into supporting him financially, Warren finally proposed to me. It was romantic and thoughtful. Candles everywhere, a rooftop at sunset, a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the fading light. I cried happy tears that rolled down my cheeks. This was proof it was all worth it. Every sacrifice. Every exhausting day. He loved me. We were building a life together. Later that week, I found the credit card receipt for the ring in his email inbox completely by accident. I was looking for a different email. He'd asked me for a loan that exact same month for business expenses he claimed were critical. I'd paid for my own engagement ring without even knowing it. The realization stung deeply, but I pushed it away and buried it. He was under enormous stress. The startup was his entire focus and consuming his life. Wedding planning began immediately. I planned absolutely everything while working full-time. The venue, the flowers, the menu, the guest list. He was too busy with the company to help with any details at all. I paid all the deposits for the venue, the caterer, the photographer, the DJ. Everything came out of my account. I told myself firmly it was temporary. Once the company took off and got funding, everything would balance out fairly. Our finances would finally equalize. I just had to hold on a little longer. Just a little more sacrifice. Just a bit more patience. I was so close to the finish line. I could see it, or so I thought. I had no idea I was running a race that had no actual finish line. 4 years into our engagement, Warren's company finally got real traction with actual customers. A major investor was seriously interested after seeing the product demo. He was absolutely ecstatic. I was relieved beyond words. Finally, all the sacrifice would pay off. The company got acquired by a larger tech firm for $8 million. The deal closed on a Tuesday. Warren was suddenly wealthy. actually legitimately wealthy. I expected our lives to change immediately and dramatically. I expected him to pay me back for everything, to plan the wedding seriously and contribute, to start paying bills. Instead, he became distant and emotionally cold toward me. He was constantly busy with important meetings, networking events, and celebrations with his co-founders. I wasn't invited to most of them, not even mentioned. "It's industry stuff," he'd say dismissively when I asked. "You wouldn't enjoy it anyway. You wouldn't understand the conversations." I felt invisible in his life. Erased. Like I didn't exist in his new, successful world at all. But I told myself repeatedly he was just adjusting to everything. The money, the attention, the pressure of sudden success. I kept planning our wedding alone. I kept paying bills from my paycheck. I kept waiting patiently for things to go back to normal. Then he called one evening and asked me to meet him at that expensive restaurant downtown. The one with valet parking. I thought he wanted to celebrate together finally. To thank me properly. Maybe even pay me back. I was completely wrong about everything. Back at the restaurant, Warren explained carefully he'd outgrown our relationship. He needed someone who understood his world now. His new world. Someone who gets entrepreneurship and the tech industry and venture capital. I felt numb all over. "I supported you for 6 years. I gave you absolutely everything I had." He looked uncomfortable and shifted in his seat. "I appreciate that. I really do. But I can't marry you out of obligation." Obligation. The word cut through me like a sharp knife. I asked directly about the money I'd lent him. Over 6 years of rent, tuition, living expenses, everything. He said calmly, it was gifts, not loans. "I never explicitly asked him to pay me back," he claimed. "I asked about the condo we'd bought together last year. My name wasn't on the title, but I'd paid half the down payment from my savings. $25,000. He said he had no record of that payment. No proof. No documentation. It never happened. I realized in that horrible moment he'd been planning this carefully for months. He'd systematically erased me from his success story. I was written out of the narrative completely and totally. I stood up from the table on shaking legs. My vision was blurry. I left the restaurant without eating a single bite of food. I walked 6 blocks home in heels, crying the entire way. Strangers stared at me. I'd been used. Completely used. And discarded. I canceled the wedding completely alone in my apartment. I called every vendor myself with shaking hands. The venue, the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the band. I lost thousands of dollars in deposits I'd already paid. I told family and friends one by one that the wedding was off. Everyone was shocked and confused. Some people actually blamed me directly. What did I do to drive him away? I must have done something terrible wrong. Maybe I was too demanding, too needy. I moved out of the condo we'd shared into a tiny studio apartment I could barely afford. The cheapest place I could find that wasn't in a dangerous neighborhood. I was drowning in debt from 6 years of supporting him. Credit cards maxed out. A personal loan still unpaid with mounting interest. Nothing in savings. I cried for weeks straight. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't sleep more than 2 hours. I lost 15 pounds quickly. I replayed every moment of our relationship constantly, wondering what I'd missed. What signs I'd stupidly ignored. My friends told me repeatedly to move on. That he wasn't worth it. That I deserved so much better. But I couldn't move on. I'd given him 6 years of my life. 6 years. I'd given him everything I had. My money. My time. My heart. My future. And he'd throw me away the exact moment he didn't need me anymore. I felt worthless. Used. Incredibly stupid. How had I not seen it coming? 6 months after the brutal breakup, I made the mistake of looking at Warren's Instagram page. He was in a relationship already. The woman was beautiful and polished with perfect makeup. Her name was Simone. She worked in venture capital at a prestigious firm. Her comments on his posts were cute and public. Lots of heart emojis. Inside jokes. Pet names. They were photographed at industry events together. galas with champagne, conferences with important speakers, award ceremonies with famous people. She fit his new, successful life perfectly. Dressed in designer clothes with designer bags, connected to important, wealthy people. I realized this woman was everything I wasn't and never could be. Connected, wealthy, useful to his public image and career. She wasn't a stepping stone like me. She was a trophy to be displayed. I felt the final piece of my heart break completely into dust. I wasn't enough. I was never going to be enough for him. Not because of who I was as a person, but because of what I represented to him. His past, his struggle, his broke years, his dependence on someone else. He wanted to erase all of that from his carefully crafted life story, including me, especially me. I was living proof he hadn't always been successful, that he'd needed help, and he couldn't stand that reality. I cried for 3 days straight after seeing those photos, barely leaving my bed. Then something changed. I hit absolute rock bottom emotionally and financially. Then something fundamental shifted inside me. Something important. I was sitting in my tiny apartment, drowning in bills I couldn't pay, and I got angry. Really, truly deeply angry. Not sad. Not heartbroken. Furious. I gave him everything, and he took it without a single second thought. Without gratitude. Without remorse. I started going through old records systematically. Bank statements. Venmo transactions. Loan documents. Emails. Text messages. Everything. I documented every single dollar I'd given him. Every rent payment. Every tuition check. Every grocery bill. Every loan that was never repaid. The total was absolutely staggering. Over $120,000 across 6 years. I didn't realize how much until I saw it written in black and white on paper. I started researching legal terms online. Unjust enrichment. Breach of promise. Quantum merit. Constructive trust. I found a lawyer who specialized in financial exploitation cases. Her name was Sharon Mills. She had excellent reviews. I made an appointment for the following week. I was done being the victim in this story. Done being the fool who gave everything away without protection. I was going to fight back with everything I had. This wasn't over. Not even close. I met with Sharon Mills at her downtown office on a Wednesday afternoon. I brought everything. 6 years of financial records in a thick folder. Sharon reviewed it all carefully for over an hour. Bank statements. Venmo receipts. Loan documents. Emails promising repayment. Text messages. This is honestly one of the most documented cases I've seen in my entire career, she said finally, looking up at me. She explained my options clearly and honestly. Civil suit for unjust enrichment and breach of promise. It was completely legal in our state. Possible claims for intellectual property if I'd contributed to his software ideas at all in any way. Sharon was blunt and honest. It'll be expensive to pursue. It'll be public. It'll be hard emotionally. He'll fight you with everything. He has money now and can afford good lawyers. Are you absolutely sure about this? I didn't hesitate even for a second. I'm completely sure. Sharon nodded approvingly. Then let's build the strongest case possible. But we need more evidence to make it airtight. She advised me to keep documenting everything going forward. To rebuild my own life visibly. To wait patiently for the right moment to strike. Timing is everything in cases like this, she explained seriously. I agreed to wait. To be patient. To be strategic and smart. I would rebuild myself completely first. Then I'd strike when he least expected it. Revenge is a dish best served cold. I threw myself completely into rebuilding my life from the ground up. I focused intensely on work and got a promotion within 3 months. I started paying off debt aggressively with every extra dollar I earned. I went to therapy twice a week and processed the betrayal properly with a professional. I cut off all contact with Warren completely and blocked him everywhere. I stopped looking at his social media entirely. I blocked him on everything. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I built a completely new life. New friends who didn't know Warren. New hobbies like painting and hiking. New routines. New apartment with better lighting. I became stronger emotionally, clearer mentally, more focused on myself and my own goals. People noticed the dramatic change in me. I was no longer the woman who gave everything away without thought. I was someone who knew her worth, who wouldn't accept less than she deserved ever again. But quietly, secretly, I was still building my legal case. Every month, I added documentation. I tracked Warren's success from a distance through public sources. His company's growth, his public statements, his reputation in tech circles. I was patient. I was strategic. I was waiting for the perfect moment like a chess player. Sharon checked in monthly. The case was getting stronger with each passing week. I was getting stronger too. And Warren had absolutely no idea what was coming for him. While reviewing old emails one night, I found something crucial that changed everything. Late-night conversations where I'd brainstormed features for Warren's software. Specific ideas I'd suggested that ended up in the final product he sold. I'd done it casually at the time. Pillow talk, essentially. Never thinking to protect myself legally or document anything. But the emails proved clearly I'd contributed intellectually to his company's success. Sharon was absolutely thrilled when I showed her everything. This strengthens your case significantly. You weren't just financial support. You were a creative contributor. We consulted with a tech intellectual property attorney named Marcus. He reviewed the emails carefully for hours. The case became much stronger overnight. I realized I'd helped build the very thing that made Warren rich and successful. And he'd given me nothing. Not even credit. Not even acknowledgement. The IP attorney explained I could potentially claim a percentage of the company's value based on my documented contributions. I felt vindicated, validated, powerful for the first time in months. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. I'd actually helped build his success story. And he'd erase me completely from it. That was about to change dramatically. A full year passed. I was in a completely different place emotionally and financially now. Financially stable, emotionally healthy, professionally thriving and respected. I still hadn't filed the lawsuit. Sharon advised patience constantly. We're building an absolutely airtight case. Let him get comfortable and complacent. Then I saw the announcement on social media. Warren was engaged again. To the venture capital woman, Simone. The wedding was set for 6 months out. A destination wedding in Italy with 200 guests. I felt the old pain flicker briefly in my chest, then fade away completely. I wasn't hurt anymore. That chapter was closed. I was ready. I called Sharon immediately. Filed the lawsuit the week before his wedding. Sharon smiled through the phone. I could hear it in her voice. Now we're talking. Perfect timing. We spent the next 5 months preparing everything meticulously. Every document, every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every legal argument. The case was absolutely airtight and bulletproof. Warren had no idea what was about to hit him hard. He thought he'd gotten away with everything, that I'd disappeared quietly into his past forever. He was very, very wrong. 2 years after the breakup, exactly 1 week before Warren's new wedding, my lawsuit was officially filed. Breach of promise. Unjust enrichment. Intellectual property contribution. I was suing for $250,000 plus legal recognition of my contribution to his company's core software. The lawsuit became public record immediately. Tech blogs picked it up within hours of filing. Startup founder sued by ex-fiancé for exploitation. The story was juicy and dramatic. People loved it. It spread quickly. Warren's legal team issued a statement calling it baseless and vindictive. They said I was bitter about the breakup and trying to extort money. But I had receipts, screenshots, bank records, emails, text messages, everything documented. The documentation was absolutely overwhelming and undeniable. Journalists started digging deeper into the story. They requested court documents. They interviewed people who knew us. The story got bigger every single day. It was everywhere online. Warren's carefully crafted reputation started cracking publicly. The self-made founder story fell apart. People realized he'd had significant financial backing from a partner he'd completely erased. His social media was flooded with questions and harsh criticism. His company's investors were asked about it in interviews. It became impossible to avoid. It was a complete PR nightmare for him. I stayed silent publicly. I let the evidence speak for itself. The story went completely viral within days across multiple platforms. People took sides immediately and passionately. Some called me a gold digger. Others called Warren a user. But the evidence was completely public. Every Venmo payment, every loan, every contribution I'd made documented. People started doing the math carefully. Over $120,000. The internet turned on Warren hard. He used her as a bank and then dumped her when he got rich. His social media was flooded with criticism. Angry comments on every post. People tagging him, constantly demanding answers. His company's investors were asked about it in every single interview. It became impossible to avoid the topic. It was a complete PR nightmare that wouldn't go away no matter what they did. His fiancée Simone's family started asking serious questions. They'd been told a completely different story about his past. I stayed silent publicly. Sharon handled all media requests professionally with prepared statements. I focused on my own life,
My job.
my friends, my therapy sessions, my healing. But privately, I was watching everything unfold carefully. Watching Warren's perfect life crack apart piece by piece. It felt like justice finally. Warren's new fiancée, Simone, started having serious doubts about marrying him. She confronted him repeatedly about the lawsuit, about the evidence, about all the money. He insisted it was all lies, that I was obsessed and bitter about the breakup and making things up. But the evidence was completely public. Simone could see everything with her own eyes. She saw the bank transfers, the loans, the timeline of him proposing to me while I was still paying all his bills. She saw text messages where he'd called me, my investment partner, to friends. She realized he'd lied to her about his entire past and how he built his company. She postponed the wedding. The expensive Italy venue was canceled at significant cost. Warren was panicking. His lawyer advised settling quickly to make it all go away quietly. But Warren refused completely. I'm not giving her a single dollar. She's trying to ruin me out of spite. His pride wouldn't let him admit any fault. He couldn't accept responsibility for his actions. It was his biggest mistake in this entire situation. Simone broke up with him 2 weeks later. She released a public statement on her Instagram. I can't marry someone who treats people this way, who lies about his past. Warren's world was collapsing around him. Warren was deposed for 8 brutal hours straight. My attorney Sharon grilled him relentlessly. Question after question after question. He was forced to admit I'd paid his rent for 4 full years. That I'd covered his MBA tuition gaps. That I'd loaned him money he never repaid. He tried to claim it was all gifts. That I'd given money freely out of love, with no expectation. Sharon produced emails where he explicitly called them loans and promised repayment. Multiple emails from different years. He was caught in lie after lie. His story kept changing under pressure and scrutiny. The deposition transcript leaked somehow to the press. It was absolutely damning. His investors read it. His board read it. They were furious. He'd misrepresented himself completely as a self-made founder. He'd used someone else's money and ideas. They started questioning his integrity publicly, his character, his honesty. The company's valuation took a significant hit. Some investors pulled out. Warren was spiraling completely out of control emotionally. His lawyer made an emergency settlement offer, $75,000, and an NDA to make it go away. I laughed when Sharon told me. She countered immediately. $400,000. Public acknowledgement of my contributions. No NDA whatsoever. Warren refused angrily. Warren would rather go to trial than admit fault publicly to anyone. His pride was destroying him completely, but he couldn't see it happening. Simone officially called off the wedding permanently. She released another statement publicly on social media. I can't marry someone who treats people this way, who lies about his past repeatedly. Warren's world was collapsing around him piece by piece. His reputation was ruined. His relationship was over. His company was actively distancing itself from him, removing his name from marketing materials. And the trial date was officially set for 3 months out. Warren's lawyer tried everything to avoid trial, offered more money, begged for private mediation, tried to negotiate. But I was done negotiating. I wanted my day in court. I wanted the truth told publicly. I wanted complete vindication. Sharon prepared me thoroughly for trial. Mock questions, practice testimony, everything rehearsed. I was nervous but ready. I had truth on my side. The trial began on a cold Monday morning in March. The courtroom was packed with people, journalists everywhere, cameras outside on the steps. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about principle, about justice, about refusing to be erased from history. I took the stand first. I was surprisingly calm and clear-headed. Sharon walked me through 6 years of financial support, every detail documented. I showed emails of brainstorming sessions. I explained how I believed in Warren when nobody else did. The jury was visibly moved. I could see it clearly in their faces. Warren's attorney tried to paint me as a willing participant who regretted her choices now after the fact. Sharon destroyed that narrative with solid evidence. Text messages where Warren begged for money, promised marriage, promised repayment. I never wavered on the stand. I stayed calm and factual throughout. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was just honest. That made me more credible. The jury could see I was telling the truth. Warren looked worse with every answer I gave. His attorney tried attacking my character, suggesting I'd manipulated Warren emotionally. Sharon objected immediately. The judge sustained it. I left the stand after 3 hours feeling strong. I'd told my story. The jury had heard the truth. Now it was Warren's turn to face questions. Warren took the stand the next day. He was immediately defensive and evasive with every answer. He tried to downplay my contributions significantly, called them minor, insignificant, exaggerated. Sharon produced his emails calling me the investor who believed in me to colleagues. He claimed the software ideas were all his, that I'd just listened passively. Sharon showed timestamped emails where I'd suggested specific features that became core to the product. He was caught lying repeatedly. His story kept changing under pressure. The jury's faces turned cold. Even his own lawyer looked frustrated. Warren's arrogance on the stand alienated everyone in that courtroom completely. He couldn't admit he'd used me. His ego absolutely wouldn't allow it. He kept insisting everything was mutual, that I'd offered money freely without asking for anything. Sharon produced text after text where he'd begged me for loans, promised repayment with interest. Warren had no good answers. He looked terrible. After 6 exhausting hours, he left the stand looking defeated. I knew in that moment we'd won. The trial continued for another full week. Witnesses testified. Documents were presented. But the outcome was clear. The jury deliberated for 2 full days carefully. They returned with a verdict on a Friday afternoon. In favor of me on all counts. Unjust enrichment, $180,000. Breach of promise, $50,000. Intellectual property contribution, $120,000. Total, $350,000 plus legal fees. The courtroom erupted. Reporters started typing immediately on their phones. Warren's face went completely pale. He looked like he might be physically sick. I was calm. I didn't celebrate. I just nodded quietly. Outside, reporters swarmed me asking questions. Sharon made one brief statement on my behalf. Justice was served today. That's all we ever wanted. I walked away without answering questions. I didn't need to gloat or celebrate. Warren's attorney filed an appeal immediately, but it was denied within a month. The judgment stood firm. Warren was ordered to pay within 90 days. I'd won. Completely. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt validated. The truth had been heard. That was all I'd ever wanted. Warren's company forced him out within a week of the verdict being announced. The board voted to remove him as CEO. Reputational damage and ethical concerns. He was given a severance package, but lost his equity growth entirely. Millions of dollars gone. The company rebranded completely without him. His name was erased from the origin story. He became a cautionary tale in Silicon Valley. The founder who exploited his partner and lost everything. He tried to start a new venture months later, but nobody would invest. Nobody would partner with him. He was toxic. Completely untouchable in the industry. Meanwhile, I used my settlement money to pay off all my debt completely. Every credit card. Every loan. Everything. I started a consulting business helping women in tech negotiate fair equity, protecting their contributions legally. I wanted to help other women avoid what happened to me. The business grew quickly. Women reached out constantly. They'd been exploited too. I gave speeches at conferences. I wrote articles for publications. I became an advocate. I turned my pain into purpose. Warren had tried to erase me. Instead, he made me stronger and more visible. 2 years after the trial, I ran into Warren at a coffee shop downtown completely by chance. He looked older, tired. He was alone at a small table. He saw me and froze completely. His face went pale. I was polished, confident, successful, wearing a designer suit, happy and healthy. He approached slowly. "Can we talk for a minute?" I considered saying no, but I was curious. We sat at a table in the corner. He looked nervous and uncomfortable. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I used you. I'm genuinely sorry." I listened silently. I didn't interrupt. "I've lost everything," he continued. "My company. My reputation. Simone. Everything." I nodded. "You did that to yourself." He asked if I was happy now. I smiled. "Happier than I've ever been." He asked if I was dating anyone. I stood up. "That's none of your business anymore." I left. He watched me go. I didn't look back. Not once. That chapter of my life was completely closed. I didn't destroy Warren's life. He did that himself through his own choices. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. For 6 years, I gave him everything. My time. My money. My ideas. My future. My heart. He took it all and threw me away when I was no longer useful to him. I could have stayed silent. I could have moved on quietly without making waves. But I chose truth. I chose accountability. I chose myself. The lawsuit wasn't really about the money, though I deserved every single cent. It was about refusing to be erased. About proving that what I gave mattered. That I mattered as a person. People ask if I regret the years I spent with him. I don't. I learned my worth. I learned that love without respect is exploitation. I learned to document everything. To protect myself legally. To never give more than someone has earned through their actions. Warren taught me what I'll never accept again in any relationship. And for that lesson, as painful as it was, I'm grateful. I don't think about him anymore. I don't wonder what he's doing. I don't care. I built a life that doesn't include him. A life I'm proud of. And that's the real victory.